Bitcoin in 2023 has done exceptionally well, and expectations are it'll do great in 2024 too. But many traders and investors still try to outperform BTC by trading other digital assets. So if you're going to trade altcoins, at least do it right. Today, we're going to be looking at the best strategy for altcoins, and where better to start than looking at the Bitcoin versus Ethereum ratio. As we're aware, Bitcoin in 2023 has performed, like we said, exceptionally well, returning over 100%, whereas Bitcoin versus Ethereum is down 30%, meaning your purchasing power in Ethereum compared to Bitcoin decreased by almost a third. And Ethereum, being the second largest cryptocurrency by market cap, is actually probably one of the better performers in underperformance, I suppose, versus Bitcoin compared to pretty much every other digital asset and altcoin. If you look at some more speculative, smaller market cap coins, I imagine they're down considerably more than 30% compared to Bitcoin. Yet people are still going to look to altcoins. People still want massive exponential gains on speculative, volatile plays. Whatever you want to do, that's fair enough. But if you're going to do it, like I said, we'll make sure we're doing it right. And just blindly buying altcoins probably isn't the best strategy. It's very hard to do, and chances are it's going to massively outperform over the course of a few months, or definitely over a few years compared to Bitcoin. So if we just go over to TradingView here, what we can do is look at the total crypto market cap. So here we can see the total valuation of the entire crypto industry, currently sitting at $1.5 trillion-ish. And a metric a lot of people use to try and see whether to invest in altcoins is to look at the Bitcoin dominance. Now, this is the amount of this total market cap that is made up solely of Bitcoin. And we can see it peaked in the last cycle at around 70%, we can see on the left axis here. And then it dropped fairly substantially to the all-time high of the total crypto market cap when it fell to around 40%. So this meant that Bitcoin's dominance fell by 30%, and that dominance, as the total crypto market cap was increasing, was made up of altcoins. So I can completely understand the appeal and the profit potential of these small, more speculative plays. But we can see, since the bottom of this cycle, we can see that the Bitcoin dominance has climbed from around 40% up to where it is now at over 54%. And chances are this is going to continue increasing for a little bit. If we look to previous cycles like the 2018 into 2020, 2021 cycle, we can see that the Bitcoin dominance as the bottom was probably around 53%. And this didn't actually start rapidly, sustainably decreasing until Bitcoin was over $40,000. So Bitcoin had done a 10x as Bitcoin dominance was continuing to increase. Of course, it's cyclical. There were periods of time where the Bitcoin dominance was decreasing a little bit and increasing a lot, but ultimately, it really wasn't a great risk-reward play to go into other more speculative assets until this started really rapidly decreasing, which, like we said, was in late 2020, 2 years after the cycle bottom for Bitcoin, and Bitcoin during that time had done a 10x in returns. Again, this doesn't mean that altcoins had lost value in US dollar terms. It just meant that they were underperforming compared to Bitcoin. And what we can do is look at a few other dominance charts. So for example, USDT. Now this is looking at the dominance of the biggest stablecoin, Tether. And we can see there's a almost one-to-one inverse correlation. Once we see the total market cap increasing, the US dollar Tether dominance is decreasing because people don't necessarily look to safe haven stablecoin assets when everything's going up exponentially. But we can see this has been flatlined for a little bit now. And as we've kind of broken past this almost support level, we could say here, it kind of aligns with what we're expecting with Bitcoin to be in the transitionary early stages of a bull cycle. But if we just look at the Ethereum dominance chart, we can see that this is, again, pretty much inversely correlated to the Bitcoin dominance. This decreased fairly notably after Bitcoin and the total market cap bottomed, and only began to, again, rapidly increase once Bitcoin had practically reached its first all-time high. And then it made a second all-time high, and Ethereum dominance climbed slightly higher. But over the past few years, this has pretty sustainably decreased. And especially if we look to the others dominance. Now, this is the more speculative crypto assets outside of the top 10 by market cap. And as the total market cap bottomed here, we could see the dominance of these other digital assets was around 6.5%. And it actually was lower when Bitcoin hit this $40,000 region. So they had lost purchasing power compared to Bitcoin. Even as Bitcoin had done a 10x, they continued to decrease in valuation, and they only began again rapidly increasing after this point, once Bitcoin was approaching its first all-time high. So you don't want to underperform Bitcoin. If Bitcoin's ready to do a 10x in price, you don't want to be in something underperforming that. You don't want to overcomplicate things. But understandably, once the dominance of Ethereum and other more speculative plays is increasing rapidly, it can make fiscal sense to be in these other digital assets. And even recently, we've started to see this others dominance start to increase a little bit, leaving many to think, maybe now I should start going into altcoins. Maybe you should start moving out of Bitcoin into more speculative plays. It's been around a year since we bottomed in price action, so maybe now is about the time. But I'm going to say now is probably still not the time. What we can do here is if I just load up this chart down here, this is the total market cap of the crypto market, excluding Bitcoin. And then if we divide it by BTC, so similar to the ETH BTC chart we have on Look Into Bitcoin, we can see that even though the dominance of altcoins, others, more speculative plays has been increasing, the relative performance compared to BTC has decreased quite notably actually. It's down since this value of dominance bottomed out. It is down, as I film this, around over 20%. So you've underperformed Bitcoin notably during that period of time. Like I said, there are periods where it outperforms when this dominance is increasing as well, but really the others, Ethereum dominance that is increasing is probably just due to people moving out of stablecoins. As the stablecoins decreasing, everything else is increasing naturally, but ultimately Bitcoin is still dominating the performance of the market. So if you are going to invest in altcoins, you need to know when to do it. And here is a really simple, really effective way. If you just go back to this Bitcoin versus Ethereum ratio chart here, this 3-month chart, we can see that it's currently underperforming BTC by 14% as I film this. All you need to do is wait for this to turn positive. If I go back to TradingView here and load up this metric here, this is looking at the over-underperformance of Ethereum versus Bitcoin. Now, once this goes positive, it means Ethereum is increasing the ETH BTC value. And once it's below zero, it means it's underperforming. And we can see here that once it's above zero, obviously ETH BTC is increasing. But if we just load up the dominance of the other altcoins, we can see once again, once this value crosses a value of zero, it's probably not a bad time to start rotating into more speculative plays. But once this crosses back beneath, do not be in these speculative, wild digital assets because ultimately they are going to vastly underperform. And we can see even though Ethereum has had a fairly decent history over the past few years, it's underperformed. Even compared to the 2017 all-time high, it didn't make a new all-time high. It's very, very rare, if not impossible, for an altcoin to outperform BTC on a very macro basis. But once you have rotated into these more speculative plays, again, we need to treat these like any other investment, have a strategy, have some risk management. And even with Ethereum versus BTC, we can load up charts and indicators that were originally created for Bitcoin and see that they actually still provide a great amount of value. If we look at something like the Pi Cycle Top indicator, again, created for Bitcoin, it called the perfect top on ETH BTC in 2017. It didn't get it at the next all-time high, but it didn't make a new all-time high on this chart. We can see the Crosby ratio, once again, perfectly timed. The peaks, the bottoms, the peaks, the bottoms, every single time. And even most recently called the absolute bottom on this ETH BTC chart as it dipped beneath this 111-day, which it had found support on throughout all of the previous cycle. Once again, if we remove these, add on the golden ratio multiplier, this is perfectly indicated very key levels of support and resistance for this chart and for pretty much every altcoin throughout all price action history. We can see that it's found support on this purple line here after it had topped out in the previous cycle at this top yellow line here. And again, the investor tool, we can see if you really wanted to accumulate Ethereum or any other altcoins, if you apply something like this, you still get these great accumulation zones. You still get these great distribution zones, very clearly and evidently marked. And what we also need to consider is due to the huge amount of correlation between Bitcoin, Ethereum, all other altcoins, you can use pretty much any Bitcoin metric and it'll still be very effective on practically every digital asset. If we look at something like the net unrealized profit and loss, but I could have picked any for this, the fear and greed, the MVRVZ, once we see a huge amount of greed in the market, once we see Bitcoin increasing exponentially, even if altcoins are in this buy area that was determined from this 3-month under or over performance, if you're holding any of these assets and you see Bitcoin start giving sell signals, don't ignore them. The correlation between crypto assets is probably going to be sustained long into the future, and it's very, very rare for any one asset to have a very sustained period of overperformance compared to BTC. Also, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to ensure you're receiving all of our content as soon as it's released. And make sure to check out all the resources we've discussed today, as well as the many more that are all available on lookintobitcoin.com. So just to summarize, capital inflows to the crypto market usually begin with stablecoins and Bitcoin before progressively shifting into smaller and smaller market cap and more speculative digital assets. Like we could see with the USDT dominance chart with the inverse correlation to the total crypto market cap, and the Bitcoin dominance massively outperforming in the early and mid stages of a BTC and crypto bull cycle before subsequently capital shifts, people try and maximize their profits. Really, it's a pretty predictable, typical cycle that's happened throughout all of crypto's history. But like we said, we can monitor Bitcoin dominance to see this trend, but we can also look at the ETH BTC chart, and specifically the 3-month chart to see the over or underperformance, to see if we should maybe even consider looking at other digital assets. And because the markets are so correlated, pretty much every BTC on-chain technical metric will work pretty great for pretty much every asset as well. So if you really want to buy alts, make sure you're using a good strategy like we discussed today. Make sure you're using all the technical tools and risk management we've discussed. But ultimately, looking at this, if you really want to buy alts, you should probably wait a little bit, because now likely isn't the time to do so. If you like this video, then please visit lookintobitcoin.com, where you can also consider becoming a site subscriber to gain access to professional resolution charts, advanced macro and portfolio data tools, in-depth crypto industry reports, live and personalized indicator alerts, private TradingView scripts, and more, all for a fraction of the standard industry price. And let me know what your thoughts are on altcoins, other digital assets. What's your strategy, thesis? How are you approaching it for the next cycle? Let me know both in the comments down below and on social media. I look forward to reading and replying to all of them. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.